navigating with design. Arlene Washburn, the voice of the way. Illuminate the path for those who sway. With a heart so pure, she steps in the game. Teaching the rules, she's igniting the flame. Ethics in play, she's setting the tone. Bringing together those once all alone. In every connection, she sees what we lack. Rise up, take your place, it's your time to shine. In the dance of love, everything's by design. With the mentor by your side, the fears fade away. Arlene's wisdom lights the night, paving your way.
Welcome to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast, the show where aspiring and experienced matchmakers come to sharpen their skills, grow their businesses, and elevate the matchmaking industry. Your host is Arlene Washburn, an award-winning ethical matchmaking advocate, mentor, and industry innovator. Let's dive in.
Sifu Rafael, welcome to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast. Your expertise spans communication, personal development, and transformational coaching. Could you give us a brief overview of the B.A.N.K methodology and what inspired you to become an expert in this field?
What really attracted me to B.A.N.K is people matter. It's such an impact when we think about people and how they matter in our lives and the words we use to communicate with them. And so B.A.N.K really stands for understanding somebody's code, if you will, how they communicate, what triggers them, what excites them. So, for example, B.A.N.K really stands for the different qualities that we have and we show up with in the world. How we even show love, how we show care for another person. So every aspect of B.A.N.K talks about the different personality types, and everybody has 24 codes to people's personality, the way B.A.N.K is broken. And sometimes you can be a certain code, but because circumstances have changed, you may become a different code along the way. So the important thing to realize is that everybody shows up slightly different according to their mood, what's going on there in their life. And sometimes B.A.N.K allows us to just ask the questions. What's going on? How can we facilitate a conversation that's going to be great for all of us? And that's why I love B.A.N.K.
I love it. And I did read up a little bit on it, and I saw that there is science behind it. Anybody who knows me knows I'm very science and research based. And my understanding is that there is science behind this methodology. And so, many of our listeners are matchmakers. And how do you think, helping people build relationships, obviously. So how does the background as a communication expert align with like helping professionals in relationship-oriented fields using this methodology?
Opposites attract, but yet they distract and they destroy sometimes, right? And we all know that. So when we think about B.A.N.K, right, there are 4 cards to this whole thing, right? So B.A.N.K it's an acronym, right? So blueprint, right? And there's 12 values that they go by. And then the other one is action, right? That's the B.A. And that's 12. Everything has 12 values, right? And then we have nurturing, the end part of it. And the last one is knowledge. So imagine you are in a relationship with someone who is very nurturing, very caring, very people oriented. And then you're with somebody who is kind of standoffish, doesn't necessarily want to do small talk, wants the facts. They want everything in detail. They don't want hugs. They don't care for hugs. They told you I love you the first time they ever said it, and that's the last time they'll ever say it again. And what winds up happening is the nurturer wants to hear it more often because that's their language, the love language. They want hugs. They want to be told they're loved. They want to be told how pretty they look or how good they look. They want to, am I dressed well? And the other person, you always look good, right? And so the remarks are to understand their languages, right? So somebody who is more like Spock, take Spock, right? Right? Live long and prosper, right? So this person does not want to show affection at all. They may have affection for you, but they will not hold your hand in public. They love you to death, but they will not do those affectionate things that a nurturer wants. And then you have somebody who's action based and they just want to go, go, go. They'll make 1,000 mistakes, but they're enjoying life. And someone else who is not an action taker is not going to understand them. And so the concept here comes to how do we navigate the waters with somebody who does not necessarily do exactly what we want? And when we can start to understand the kind of person that they are, we can actually have a better relationship. For example, my fiance, knowledge. I'm more nurturing and action based. She's more of a blueprint. I tell you, she researches everything. No affection in public at all. Meanwhile, I'm a hugger. I love to hug. I'm always like, oh, come on, give me a hug, give me a kiss. She's like, no, stay back. Never in public. And so for a long time in the beginning, I was like, man, I may be in the wrong relationship. And until I decided, let me figure her out. And I could never figure her out. Well, I can't figure anyone out. But I can start to understand where they stand. She'll do anything for me. And I'll do the same for her. But she didn't speak the language I wanted. She spoke it her way. She does things. She doesn't surprise me with a gift like I would. I'll go to the store and I'll say, wow, I know she would love this. And I would just pick it up and bring it home and here you go. And she's like, what was that for? I was like, I thought of you. And so when we can learn to communicate according to a person's language, it really facilitates more love, more connection. Had I never understood her language, she would not be in my life now, and I would not be in hers. And then she may be looking at somebody who's exactly like her, and there would be no affection anywhere. And so that would be, but a lot of likes attract, right? But they also repel, just like a magnet, right? You can have two magnets, but they're going to push off. So it's important to understand where they are. And even some trigger points. I mean, when I see something, I'm like, man, I need to have that. And she'll say the same thing, but she plans and she researches and she goes through all this process, which can take her 3 months to do. Meanwhile, I got it in 30 seconds. I bought it in 30 seconds, right? So that's the difference between an action and somebody who's more of a blueprint, where they want all the white paper, if you will. They're looking at a company. They want to know every little thing about the stock. And then it takes them a long time, almost like procrastinating, yet they're not procrastinators, because when they're ready, they will buy. So buying, like selling, is part of the love language, right? Because if I'm selling something, I have to present it to you. If I'm selling me to you, I have to present it in a way that's going to be attractive for you. Mm-hmm. If I come across crass and bold and rah, you're going to go, whoa, 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 hold your horses. This is not what I want. But if you're the same way, you're like, yeah, this is what I want. And then we both get together and we're both, and then nobody really reacts to a good decision because they didn't have the time to think about it. Then we can have chaos down the line. So romance at first sight is incredible. But then that's why we have breakups. That's why people don't take the time to get to understand one another.
Let me ask you a question about this. Well, you're referring to the five love languages, which I love because it's very similar to B.A.N.K. You know, people want to love in the way that they want to be loved. And I always talk about the platinum rule and the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated is the golden rule. But the platinum rule is the upgrade of treating people the way they want to be treated.
Correct.
And so I wholeheartedly agree with this process. Now, how do people use this? You know, do they go to go to a website and fill this out so I can know your code? I guess for matchmakers, they can use this before they get on a sales call. I would imagine this is extremely helpful information before they get on a sales call. And just on the side, your wife or your girlfriend sounds a lot like me. My husband, and you sound a lot like my husband. Like this is our ongoing conflict of he's really fast and I slow him down because, you know, when you're really fast, sometimes it's like you're going off half cocked to do something without researching it. So we have a very similar dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, when we meet in the middle, that's when we're really good.
Oh, yeah.
When he's just going crazy, doing whatever, and I'm over here just slowing things down to a halt, that neither extreme is ideal, but definitely, you know, that coming together is so important. But back to the sales, because this I think is a really important area where I feel like this could be very useful and similar to a lot of other personality tests. How would you go about that if you're, you know, a business owner and you're going to have a sales call? Do you just have people go in and look this up? I don't know.
So here's the cool thing. I have a link that people can go to.
Okay.
And I do that with my podcast. I even do it with some of my other businesses. And one of the cool things is that in 90 seconds, it will tell you your characteristics based on simple questions. And in 90 seconds, it'll tell you your code. And the code breaks up into either a bank, B.A.N.K, or A.N.K.B, whatever. So there's 4 letters that we're going by, and it's all based on, it's also broken down into different colors, right? And so for everyone, for example, let's say you're a blueprint, right? And stability, structure, systems, planning, processes, predictability, responsibility, duty, rules. Oh my God, do these people love rules? They follow the rules to the T. Credentials, titles. Make sure you call me by my title first. If I'm a doctor, if you call me by the first name, forget it. I'm not talking to you. And then tradition. They're very traditional. And then, so what winds up happening is once they go there, you answer a couple of questions and then it breaks it down and it tells you what your code is. The cool thing about this whole thing, this is the coolest thing. It gives you a report on those 4 assessments. It tells you, and people go, oh my God, that's me. How did it do it in 90 seconds? That's incredible. Now, let's say, right, that's easy. Not only do you, as the person sending the link to someone, you get the report too. Here's the cool thing. So before I have a conversation, I know your code. I know how to speak to you. I know your language. Therefore, I don't start coming in and I come in, maybe you're more nurturing. So I'm going to talk about community. I'm going to talk about, tell me about your family, right? If you're more of a blueprint, I may come off a little bit different. Tell me about, your doctorate. How, how did you come about that? What made you do that? So it allows us to navigate how we speak to this person so that we can make a better connection. And everything in business is connection.
Yeah.
Everything in communication is connection. If we're speaking two different languages and we don't even know hand gestures or facial gestures, we're lost, right? Can you imagine what it was like for different tribes to encounter one another?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where a lot of the body language stuff, which is a huge percentage of our communication, comes in. And it's really interesting. But this is just so much more advanced in terms of finding common ground. It's not like you show up as a hypocrite and just try to talk to someone and what they're interested in, but you're actually genuinely being yourself, but connecting with them on their level. And just as an aside, mine is NAB, KNAB. I did it a while back when I was going to be on your podcast. So I'm not a blueprint per se. I'm more of a like a knowledge seeker, almost like an addiction. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly on a course. It's insane. And my husband thinks I'm going to go crazy. He's like, Arlene, how much information can you store? So this is very, very cool. I want to talk. I want to shift gears a little bit because I know you have a very interesting background, and I could see why you went into this field of communication and all of that. Having a background as a martial artist, which I'm always in awe of people who do that because there's this mind body connection, and I don't know, it gives you this mental um, I don't know, toughness, and just like, because people think about martial arts because of the fighting and being able to defend yourself.
Mhm.
But I look at it because I had a cousin who was a black belt, and it was more about mental toughness and being able to navigate things mentally in such a way. And then, of course, your body responds to that. But so you got the martial arts background, which you still do, I believe. I want to hear more about that. But then you went into this whole genre of communication and started a whole communications company. How did that all come about?
Uh, it's very interesting because communication has been part of my whole entire existence. And it started very early on. I had polio as a kid. I lost the ability to walk.
Wow.
And for me to even be able to do what I do nowadays is pretty incredible. It's a gift that God gave me. And it was the communication that I had with myself when everything went haywire, when my legs turned backwards,
Mhm.
and I had to go into full braces like Forrest Gump, if you will, and to learn how to go from walking, running to not being able to move my legs, then to be able to crawl, to start walking again, to learn how to walk again, and eventually getting out of the braces, wearing special shoes till I was about 12, and always persistent with my movement.
Mhm.
And the communication I had with myself and with God is what really allowed me to get out of that whole poor me mentality. I still don't go into this poor me mentality. Those things happened to me for a reason, right? It made me stronger. It didn't make me weaker. I don't tell people like, oh, here's my story. Let's have a little cry on it. That's not why I say it. I say it to show people that no matter what happens in your life, if you speak the proper words to yourself, you will win. You will win no matter what is going on in your life. So communication has been there my entire life. And it really hit harder when I went from a speaking country that was all Spanish I'm Colombian, and I was excited, and I'm coming to this new country. Little did I know, they didn't speak my language. And there I go. I talked about two tribes that meet and no one's speaking each other's language. And how do we navigate that? So when I got here, I thought everybody was going to speak Spanish. Guess what? No. And so when I was taken to school, my parents didn't know any better. And my school is about 2 miles away. My dad walked me to school the first day before I went to school, a day or two before. And then he said, this is how you get to school and this is how you get back. He didn't know I could take the bus. I didn't know I could take the bus. And so for many years, when I went to that school, I walked. Rain, snow, didn't matter, 2 miles. And in that process, I only had me to speak to. You can do it. So what if it's raining? Or sometimes I didn't have an umbrella. And halfway there, started pouring. I have a choice. I can go back home, which my parents were not going to have that, or I can continue to school. I would get to school, I would be soaking wet. And the teachers would be like, what is going on with this kid? And they would scramble to look like for clothes that were left behind. People leave their clothes around, and they would give me pants or shirts or whatever. And no one at this school spoke Spanish. So there I am, this kid who can't communicate. They can't communicate with me. And so I had to figure out really quick how to adapt. And so language became such a critical component in my life. Every day was a struggle. But there were some people who stepped up and did help. I remember a second grade teacher who pulled me out of class. Oh, by the way, I was not put in the correct grade. I was put in first grade because at 8 years old, I should not be in first grade. They put me in first grade because I didn't know the language. And probably they did me a favor. So that was, for most people, they would be mad about it. I'm like, this is why I can speak now, because I started from zero, right? I think I was too old for pre-K, right? So they put me in first grade. And then in second grade, a teacher pulled me out, and for about half hour every day, she would help me with words. Would you believe one of the hardest words I had was the, T-H-E, the. I could not say the. I don't know what the heck I was saying, but it wasn't the. And so the fact that she took the time to make sure to help me pronounce, to help me understand, and when it came to writing as well, because words are powerful when they're written, I started to, also I'm an artist, I like to draw, so words became art for me. So I am very good with my penmanship, right? I'm very good with cursive. People even said to me the other day, they're like, who uses this? I said, well, I do. Look at me. I'm going to show you. I have my remarkable, actually, here's some scrap paper. If you notice, it's all in script, right? It's all in script. And this is just, I'm just taking a quick note. And it's all about how we communicate. Now, if somebody reads my handwriting, they're like, wow, that looks nice. But it's because that's how I communicate, with my words, with my language, with my hand gestures, my facial gestures. And so communication became a huge component of everything. And once I started learning how to communicate, I knew that I had a gift. God gave me a gift. Every morning, I first thing, this morning, I don't know, I wanted to get up around 4:30, but at 3:46, get up, Rafael, here you go. So I was woken up by no alarm. I was woken up because God said, get up and let's go. And so immediately I start praying. And then I say, thank you for the gifts you've given me. And then my prayer right after that is, please allow me to share these gifts with my brothers and sisters. Because if we are all God's children, if you believe in God or whoever you believe in, we're all connected somehow. So Arlene, you're my sister, right? That's why I love you. But we need to be able to help one another. And that's what I've been called to do. So very early on, I understood that the gift I had was to help others. In high school, I used to go in 0 period and help people learn to swim. I taught gymnastics. I was on the gymnastics team. I taught gymnastics at a different high school than the one I was going to. I've always been teaching people, helping people navigate how they move their body, but also how they communicate. So many people have always said to me, I'm having trouble with this relationship. Can you help me out? Sure. What's going on? So communication, as you know, is the key ingredient to relationships.
You know, I've known you, I guess we met before just on the heels of COVID or just as COVID started. And I'm so happy that I asked that question because I did not know this history that you know, all the things that you had to overcome, and which is also a testament to your mental toughness. Like you are just a powerhouse, and whatever you set your goals to, you're like, I'm going that way. You get there. I know that about your personality, and it's amazing. And you know, like everything that you said was just so like stuff that I can connect to,
Mm.
similar situations that I lived through as a kid, learning the language when you have Hispanic parents at home and that are speaking Spanish, which I thought was a great thing because I got to learn both languages, and now I can, it actually helped me to even learn other languages. Like when I was studying a little bit of Japanese, I found it easier because they switched the subject and predicate in the way that we do in Spanish, so my brain could easily do that. And I just love everything that you said about helping others and knowing that that was your calling. Because I mean, you and I can relate so much into the way that you are, and similar to how I am. I never feel good about just doing something and learning something. I have to share it with other people. It's like, oh my God, you got to know about this thing. Like,
Yes.
I have friends, my husband and I have friends that we love so much. They live in Florida. And if we find a new product, we're like, oh my God, you have to check this out. And then they go and they buy it. They're like, oh my God, it's so good. It's like, I can't keep it to myself, and I need to share it with other people. And I feel like you're very, very similar in that way.
Well, if we get a gift and if we become hoarders without gifts, no one else will know the beauty of those gifts, right? And you asked me, why did I go into the communication realm? Because I deal with, here's the cool thing. I train every day without fail. And I train every day that I can. I train people who are 3.5 years old, and the oldest person I've ever trained was 102 years old.
Wow.
The incredible thing about training someone is when they're curious,
Mm.
when they want to know, and that lights me up. I can go on and on about someone who's curious and somebody who thinks that they know everything and their curiosity has left. They become boring, right? And so communication is, how do we communicate with, I can talk to a 3-year-old and then I can turn around and talk to their parents at a different level with different words, and yet still connect with both of them and have them both follow my guide or me follow their guide. Because it's not just about me, it's about us.
Mm.
And it's not just about them, because then I'm left out. So I don't want to be left out either. I am so curious. So not only you've been on my show, but I created 6 different shows. I'm about to do a 7th.
Wow.
And the reason is because it all stems around communication. And the more I spoke to people, the more I realized that people need to learn to use better communication to get their message across. Whether you have a sales team, whether you have an employee, imagine if you are the owner of a sports team. Do you cringe when they put the microphone in front of your best player and your best player hums and whoos and ha's and doesn't make sense and they're representing your team? Meanwhile, you're paying them millions of dollars. Or what if you just have a regular company and something happens and they talk to the janitor and the janitor doesn't speak well? So I believe everyone deserves to be able to be understood. And that's where communication comes in. That's why my tagline is to enhance communication worldwide for everyone, not just one person, not the elite, not the well-educated. Why not start with our children? Why not give them the keys to the kingdom before they get there? Let's give them the benefit of a doubt that just because they're young, they don't know how to speak.
That's an incredible mission and one that I can totally get behind because you see it every day, even with politics or, the messaging and the way the words that are used can be polarizing or they can be inclusive and bring people in and get people to join together. And the words matter, right? And words have meaning. My daughter and I get into these discussions about certain words because I try to eliminate certain words out of my vocabulary just because I feel like those are useless words. That means nothing. It's, things like expectation or like certain words. And I'm like, ugh, can we just get that out of the dictionary? and then we have these dialogues because she's brilliant and could be a member of Mensa, but she'll check me also, and I do come in with curiosity. That's why I'm always seeking information, because I agree with you. You always have to be curious. If you think you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably the dumbest person in the room because you're not open to like receive and to learn, and that's so important. And I think that's what makes life so much more interesting.
Ooh, yeah.
You know.
One of the things that I always tell my clients and anyone else is you can't learn when you're talking. You can't.
Hmm.
You can only learn when you're listening. And if you're the smartest person in the room, find a better room.
I love that. That's so good. I'm gonna have to steal that one. I'll give you credit.
Absolutely. A lot of people, because they want to be put on a pedestal, they want to be in that room where everybody else does not shine. Everybody's flashlight is shining on them. And yet, only one person is being lit. I'd rather be in a room where everyone is being lit, where I have not one flashlight, but I have a slew of flashlights. I bring a floodlight for everybody because we need to let everybody know that they matter. And that's why I joined B.A.N.K, because people matter. Their opinions matter. Hey, listen, I may not agree with you, but that doesn't mean you have no value. I may not even like your politics. I may not like what you're wearing. I may not like what you're driving. I may not like your neighborhood. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. We just have different ideas. We're both gifts from God.
So we talked about using B.A.N.K for. I mean, I can see that there's so many areas we can go into here. Sales, obviously, if you know somebody's personality, style, and communication style, if you get on a sales call, you're going to be a lot more effective because you're going to approach the conversation in a way that someone else is going to want to hear it. Also, we talked about relationships, being able to interact with your significant other in a much deeper level because you can understand where they're coming from and accept them for who they are instead of, I think often people get into relationships and they want to change them or they want them to be more like them. Or, I mean, that the spice of life is those differences. Obviously, there's, as someone who specializes in relationships, I know that the core values need to be aligned. But above and beyond the core values and the key life values and life goals, personalities can be very different, and it makes it interesting as long as you know how to navigate those waters. So, how would you recommend that when people know that there are differences, like how to navigate that? What I mean by that is, as you said, your girlfriend is someone that is, I guess she's a
Like you.
well, just a B for like blueprint.
Knowledge, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So what's
Knowledge and blueprint. Those are her two primary.
okay? Because I'm not a blueprint. I
Mhm.
mean, well, towards the end, but I'm more of a, what did I say? Nab. That's like
Yep.
the last thing. I'm not a blueprint. I am a rule breaker. I hate to admit, and my husband gets very upset with me because he's very much by the rules, and I'm like, look, if the rule doesn't make sense to me, I cannot abide by it because I'm very common sense. So, which is terrible. I don't recommend people be that way, but sometimes I just cannot. If a rule just doesn't make sense, I'm like, I'm not dealing with that.
Mhm.
And he thinks I'm crazy, but so, what's the best way to navigate these conversations, when it comes to communication between two people that have different blueprints, or I don't want to confuse by using that word, but that have different styles of being through this bank system?
Well, I love what you said earlier. I love who you are. Now change for me. Wow, I fell in love with you. Now, can you change the way I want you to be? And that will never work. So you have to remember the first time you met that person. Were they being authentic to who they truly are? Or was that just a facade to attract you? This is why a lot of people get married and in no time they're pulling each other's hair out, they're hitting each other, they're being nasty to one another. We need to navigate the waters before we get into that. It should be, and tell me if you agree or not, but it should be super hard to get married and easy to get divorced.
100%. And I think, there's a lot of science and research behind that. I mean, in the first 3 years, people up to 3 years can be in limerence, which is just a bunch of chemicals and hormones going through your body that make you want to connect with someone, but that may not be the right person for you. There's so many different reasons why people do that. There's limerence, there's women on birth control pills that will impact their personalities because it's controlling your hormones. So you may end up with someone that you're not even attracted to when you get off those birth control pills. You'll find out. So yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think people really need to get to know each other and come off of those things like limerence, birth control pills, and other things, and really be authentically who they are with that individual to see if they're compatible. And I don't think a lot of people don't do that. The norm in some cases, although it's changing now with the younger generation, but in some cases, especially back in the day, you would get engaged, you'd know someone 6 months. Before you know it, you're engaged. In a year and a half into the relationship, you're getting married. And it's like, you don't even know who the heck you're dealing with here. It's nuts.
Well, one of the things that I enjoy about bank is that one day you may be very nurturing and think all of a sudden a project comes on. You got to take that nurturing hat off and you got to put on the knowledge hat on. I know I need to know the details. I need to make sure everything is going to be copacetic. Everything's going to line up in order to make this big decision. You've already made the decision to take this project on, but now you can't be like, oh, how are you feeling today? No, it's like, let's go. We got to do this. This is the actions. And then sometimes you get somebody who is so action that they're running from one place to the other because they don't have time to prepare. They don't have, and then they show up late and they're like, it's going to be fine. And meanwhile, the person that they're dealing with hates people who are late, and they will not deal with them. And you'll lose a sale, you'll lose a relationship because their idea is, I don't matter. So you're late and you didn't even take my feelings into consideration. And then you take somebody who's a blueprint or knowledge, and they show up not 15 minutes early, they show up half hour early. I've known people to show up an hour early. I know because they've come to my house when I said 6 o'clock, and they're there at 5 o'clock, and now we have to entertain them. So, but that's okay. It's okay because, I understand who they are. So I always
in my car, but I'll show up early.
I will. And if I see somebody out there, I'm like, come on in, because I understand that we are dealing with different personality types. And I love parties. I love engagement. I love people. And sometimes I will just talk to kids. I will talk to an adult. Same conversation, but it's worded differently. When you talk to someone and you go, how are you? And they go, I'm okay. And then they kind of look down, they're not okay. Right? And then if you have the time with and there's nobody else around, you go, hey, you know what? I really would love to know how you're feeling. Is there anything I can do? Anything I can help? Can I get you some water? Can I get you some food? Is there anything I can do to help? And the same thing with kids. How was your day at school? Fine.
Yeah.
Really? I said, well, tell me about, what was your favorite subject today? I didn't have any. Really? So why'd you go to school? I was made to. I said, so if you didn't have to go to school, what would you do? And all of a sudden they light up a little bit. And I go, you're talking about science. Did you have science today? No, that's tomorrow. I said, well, you excited for tomorrow? Because it's science. All of a sudden, their conversation takes away from the dread of their day and lights them up. Because as humans, we have a torch. And sometimes other humans try to put it out. My job as a God-loving individual is to light you up any which way I can. And so sometimes it's listening to the little cues, the little body language, the slumped shoulders, or the facial expressions that they lack. Sometimes we got to tell people, they go, how you feeling? I'm happy. I'm like, really? Tell your face. Tell your face.
I love it. And that skill that you're talking about is so important in the matchmaking world, because often when you're doing a consultation with someone that is coming to you because they're looking for your services, they sometimes have a chip on their shoulder, or they don't want to acknowledge that they're struggling in some way. And you have to build that rapport, but it's not building rapport talking about the weather. It's building rapport and going deep in the way that you're discussing it, which is so important. It's asking the right questions, and then asking a question about their answer, and continuing to the point where they feel like they're being heard and understood, and that you're deeper than just some superficial small talk BS, which, I find often when I'm training people that in sales, for example, that they think the small talk is how you connect, and it's not.
Not
It's
at all.
really going deep. I love this. I'm so excited. I want to hear, what are all these shows that you're working on, and how do you have the time? Because you get up every day and you work out, you train, you run a school, right? For
Two
martial arts.
schools. Two schools.
2 schools for martial arts.
No, one for communication. I have a physical location for communication. We
Okay.
do workshops and so forth, and a martial arts school.
I need to come visit you so I can
You
see
do.
these schools. But and where are they based out of?
Farmingdale, Long Island, in New
Okay.
York, New
Okay.
York. So here's the cool thing, and you're talking about small talk, right? If one of the matchmakers that you train meets a person and they didn't do the analysis online, and they say, "Hey, can you do me a huge favor? I want to be able to help you in your relationship when you are looking for someone. I want to know how to help you best. Would you mind taking these cards and just look them over and put the one that makes most sense to you on top?" So I just flipped them out. So this is action, knowledge. Um, this one is blueprint, and this one is, I'm sorry, action, nurturing, blueprint, and knowledge, right? And but it could be any order. And now once you look at that, and then you know what matters most to them,
Mhm.
and then you can say, now you know how to communicate with them. This allows you a great opportunity to speak the way they want to be heard, which allows, and I also do this for my communication school. When people first come in, I go, and I have them laid out on the table. I said, flip these out, put them however you want. And then I go, hey, by the way, and I put that on their name tag. I put their code. And the reason is I say, I want you to meet somebody who is a different code than you. But I also want you to meet people who are similar code to you. And then you can see there's some differences even in people who have the same exact code as you, because we're all different.
Mhm.
We have 24 codes in us. So we can change our code based on our mood. In a situation, you may be super happy, but all of a sudden you hear bad news. Your code changes, right? You may become more reserved, more, I don't want to be bothered right now. I can't deal with this other stuff. I need to focus. So all of a sudden, you were this action person that was jumping around and dancing, and all of a sudden, that code has to be put aside because now it's a serious matter. So our codes change consistently. We're consistent with it, but they change at a heartbeat. And we need to know that coming in. If we are doing a matchmaking event and everybody walked around with their code, wow, we go, wow, you and I think we could do a great a session here. Would you like to have coffee? Would you like to go on a second date? Because now we kind of communicate it in a real open way compared to, I have this facade, you have this facade. Have you ever seen the movie? I think it was Kentucky Fried Movie, where they meet each other. They're in their room and they're at the table, and she goes, "Oof, would it be okay if I, she takes her eyelashes off or something?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." And then they start taking, he takes his leg off, and she takes her leg off, and they take all these different things off, and she takes her fake boobs out, and then now they're becoming the person they should have met to begin with.
That is very, very common in the world of dating.
Oh yeah.
The thing, I guess, what my last question, and before we tell everybody how they can learn more about this system, is so if people are constantly changing code, how would you then do a complete assessment to be able to say, okay, this is your code normally, but under stress, it becomes this. And then under, you know, excitement or whatever, like where are there different aspects in life or experiences where this then has to shift and you need to know how to adjust? I mean, how does that work? Because that sounds a little bit tricky.
It does. Usually, when people are stressed, it's their third code they go to. So let's say I
Ah,
am action, nurturing, and my third code is what? Blueprint, right? It says blueprint there.
okay.
That's where. If I'm action, I like to be noticed. I want to drive the fanciest car, the nicest clothes. I want all this luxury stuff. Nurturing, yeah, I love you. I'm going to hug you. My community matters. But then all of a sudden I get into the blueprint. And what happens with blueprint? All of a sudden I'm stressed out. I need to have some intelligent people around me. I need science. I need the universal truths. I need expertise, competence, accuracy. I need to see the big picture. And that's where the stress comes in. While here's an action based, right? Let me read this. There's 12 of them. I'll just read a few. Freedom. They don't want to be tied down, right? Flexibility, action, opportunity, excitement, attention, stimulation. And so those are very different. But when we get stressed, we put the first two aside and we go with the third one.
Okay, so mine is action. Okay, that's really, really interesting. So there's a whole system. I mean, so we just, folks, if you're listening, you gotta look this up and use Sifu Rafael's link and check this out, because what I'm hearing is that it is a complete system that is going to help you navigate, like when what's going to happen, like if you're dealing with someone, a loved one, an employee, a colleague. This is so incredible, just having a system that you can go to and say, okay, I know how to deal with this situation. And then be open to adjusting how you present yourself. It doesn't make you inauthentic. It just makes you want to connect and communicate. And you have to meet people where they are. So I love this. I want to dig more into this. You've convinced me that this is something I need to look into.
Well, consider this for a second. Let's say I'm doing a sales presentation and I come at you with all this action stuff. Meanwhile, you're a blueprint. And I say, well, this is great. You should buy it now. Buy now, buy now, buy now. And you're like, in the back of your head, you're like, no, I need details. I need criteria. I need studies. I need more information. I need to research it. I need more, more, more. And I just sold you nothing. I sold you on the fact, if I'm in sales, I sold you on the fact that you don't want to deal with me. That's what I sold you on.
Yeah.
But now if I know your code and I know that you need information, I will come with information and I will not pressure you to buy today. And I will come by and I say, hey, I have all this information here. What I would love for you to do is read it over. Let's have a second conversation. Any questions you have, I will be more than happy to answer them for you. I use this in my businesses, and that's why I have a great success rate. I don't leave money on the table because I communicated correctly with you. Why do I want to come at you in a way that's going to make you run the other way?
Yeah.
I want to attract you the way you want to be attracted, not me. Listen, I go between, I'm a knob, right? I'm a nurturing, I'm an action, but I'm also knowledge. So I changed. Now a knob. Knowledge,
I am too.
nurturing, action, and blueprint. But
Okay.
sometimes I'll flip. Sometimes I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go, right? Why waste time? Life is short. Let's go now. I might die tomorrow. But then I go, oof, that's $10,000 I got to spend right now. But if I did my research and before you even presented everything to me, I already bought.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a buyer, I don't just go and cold turkey buy something. So there's my knowledge. But when you present it to me for the first time, guess what I'm doing? If it's a yes, it's a hell yes.
Yeah.
If it's a no, it's a see you later. Right?
Same. I love it. Well, how can people get a hold of you and learn more about this system? Obviously, we will put the link in the show notes, but
Easy. I am all over. You look at me in social media. I am Sifu. If you want to listen, I hide nothing. I'm not hidden anywhere. You want to reach out? My email is Sifu, SIFU, at speakingprowess.com. That's one of my facilities, Speaking Prowess, where we teach you how to communicate at a higher level.
All right. Can you say that? Can you say that again? I hit one
Sure.
thing and then we'll jump off.
Sure. Sifu at speakingprowess.com. Speaking Prowess is my website. Sifu at is my email. And Sifu, you can call me that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
My pleasure.
We'll
Thank
be
you.
in touch. Bye for now.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow matchmakers and friends. For more resources, training, and inspiration, visit lovepromastermind.com and follow us on social media. Remember, matchmaking isn't just a career, it's a calling. Let's keep building connections, changing lives, and growing together. Until next time, stay inspired and keep matching.